welcome back to the Pharos Fit podcast. Just me and Emily on this one today. Hello, dear. How are you?
Hello, very good.
Me and Emily just got back from a big trip. We wanted to talk a little bit about the trip and the things we learned on that journey. It was a fairly long trip. We went to a lot of different places. We basically covered 6 states in 2 weeks and how many thousands of miles?
4,200 miles,
4,200 miles.
4 campsites, 4 hotels.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of adventuring.
Yeah, at a time when gas is super expensive. So not a particularly smart thing to do, but the cost of flights also was very expensive. So it kind of worked out to be the cheaper option, even though it was not cheap. But anyway, we want to talk a little bit about training on the road, a little bit about nutrition on the road, a little bit about education on the road and the things we learned along the way, and just in general, the kind of experience, the kind of perspective it gave us, and what it kind of like set up for us in the future. So let's talk about training. Well, let's talk about what we actually did first of all. So we left from LA. We packed up our truck. We just took our regular truck and ordered a tent and some basic gear.
Yeah, we'd never done camping before, so we were searching for all these things beforehand. Got a tent, got a cot, got a one of those sleeping pad things.
Right, and obviously we have Wyatt, and Emily's obviously pregnant. And one of my clients pointed out to me when I got back that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do with a pregnant wife and a child in bear country.
Someone said, "Are you stupid?"
Yeah. But both of us hadn't really camped since we were kids, and this was the first kind of like family camping trip, obviously. So we got everything we kind of needed. It wasn't like we weren't super rough in it. Like we bought nice stuff like camping beds. What do you call them? Cots?
They're cots. So like elevated cots above the ground.
Yeah.
And then
we had gas fire cooker, obviously like miniature camping cookers, pots and pans and all that kind of shit. So we had stuff. It wasn't like alone. It wasn't like hunting and
we weren't
cooking over a fire and doing that kind of stuff.
It was slightly glamping. As glamping as camping gets.
Right. So we packed up the truck and literally we could not have fitted anything more in that truck. It was like jam-packed with, everything we could possibly think we need. And we took off from LA. And the first thing we did was we were heading to Jeff Skidmore's wedding. Jeff is an old member of the gym. Jeff and Nicole, both members of the gym. And he was getting married in the Hood River in Oregon. And we were on our way to see them, and we stopped off on the way to see Emily's family in Woodland near Sacramento. And Emily's Omar was still in Woodland, and we wanted to tell her the good news about the new baby. So we stopped off there on the way, which was super nice. And Wyatt got to play with his cousins and so forth.
Went to a water park, and that was fun. Yeah, and then we went up to Bend, Oregon, and saw my cousin, and and explored that area for a little bit. Beautiful. It's nice because once you get past the 5, it's like the 5 from LA to Sacramento just sucks. And it's, barren, desert, gross farmlands, like the worst kind of farming practices. Yeah. And then once you get past Sacramento and you get to, more like Redding and all that kind of area, it's just beautiful. Nice. Yeah. The landscape completely changes. So went up to Bend and then landed in Hood River for a wedding and had a nice accommodations there. So it was like we started our trip in very nice accommodations and then went roughing it from there.
Yeah. So after the wedding, which we'll talk about training and all that kind of stuff around that in a second. But after that, we just headed east into towards Montana. We stopped off at, what was the name of the place we stopped at?
Wallowa Lake was the first place after that, which was so fun and beautiful. I wish we would have stayed more time there. And then the Loxa River, which is basically 120 miles of zero cell service and absolutely nothing.
Off the grid.
Totally off the grid. Had no, we were painfully unprepared because Wallowa Lake is like, it's like proper camping and you can go and get firewood there and there's general stores and like a lot of things. And Loxa River is like, you show up and there's a campsite and there's nothing around. So thank God we brought an axe so we could forage for some firewood and make it happen that night.
It actually turned out to be super fun. Like the other one was, like Emily said, more of a commercial campsite, so there's like more available. Whereas the second one was like a lake to swim in, and then just like deal with it. Like whatever you can find, whatever you can burn. And there's no shops there at all, so we didn't really prepare our evening meal that well.
No, but we had some canned. We had canned stuff and some peanut butter jelly sandwiches.
Yeah,
a few eggs left over.
And again, we'll talk more about nutrition later. But yeah, it was very simple, but kind of magical. And then after that,
Lola Hot Springs.
Lola Hot Springs before Missoula, yeah.
Yep.
Which
Lola
was
Hot Springs.
Hot.
So hot.
So hot.
Yeah. And then it's interesting to be in a hot spring while it's hot, because you're like, maybe I'd like a cold pool instead of a hot pool. Yeah. But that was nice. And then went to Missoula.
Yeah. And Missoula's kind of like a college town, so you know, it felt less Montana-y than Bozeman and Livingston, all those kind of places. It felt kind of like Silver Lake a little bit.
A little bit like Silver Lake, definitely.
So, but beautiful still, you know, beautiful scenery. Went to a great gym there and all that kind of stuff. And then after Missoula, we started kind of like making the journey toward home. But obviously, we went through Boise, Idaho.
Went to Idaho Falls, was in a horrible campsite that we left immediately. We were supposed to be there for 2 nights, left after the first one, and was like, no, we got to get out of here. This is not great.
It was sketchy. It was right by a main road. There was like traffic all night, and there was like just weird stuff happening on the campsite.
Sheriff's cop cars coming through the campsite, making sure everything was okay. We were like, we got to get out of here ASAP.
Yeah.
Went to Boise.
Boise's a great city, super clean, nice place. Has
that river running straight through it, and so that was great. So hot, it was 104 degrees, and pretty miserable. But luckily, we found water everywhere we went, and Wyatt got to explore and dig in the dirt a little bit and throw rocks and all of that. So made it fun. And then from Boise went down to Winnemucca, Nevada, which is basically just a bunch of casinos, as well as a boot barn, a really nice boot barn there.
I love a boot barn. But it's weird once you get into like those northern parts of Nevada, it's kind of depressing. It's like these casinos where people are like gambling at midday and drinking at midday, and a lot of like fairly rundown neighborhoods.
At 12 o'clock, and there's like families spending lunchtime and spending time at casinos, and we were like, oh, this is not the life for us.
It was kind of bleak in Nevada.
But
we just kept driving through it, and eventually ended up at Mammoth, which is awesome. Like Mammoth, probably maybe the best campsite we went to. I mean, you go so far and you go through so many different states, and then you get back to California, and it's like, well, this is actually awesome. Like California, like, it is amazing. It does have such amazing places, and they do it really well. Like, it was really well managed. There was everything there. There's so many lakes near Mammoth that you can actually go to and swim in. There's so much to do if you have the time. And we actually had a great sort of day and a half there.
Minus the bear breaking into our box.
Yeah, we made a crucial error on the night of. You have these bear boxes that have handles on that you're supposed to remove. So you put all your food in there, then you lock it, and then once you've locked it, you then have to remove the handle. And what happened was we put all our food in there, we locked it, but we forgot to move the handle. We went to bed, and then just before midnight, a giant bear got into the camp, got it with its paw, opened the fucking cabinet, got the marshmallows, and stole them, much to Wyatt's horror. And it was kind of crazy. Like, everyone in the campsite woke up, and like they were like warning me, and like, hey, a bear got in your camp. You took some stuff out your cupboard. Like, we don't know if he's going to come back, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, again, I'm there with a pregnant wife, a young son.
And I wake up in the morning, and there's the axe.
in danger.
There's the axe sitting right there. You can tell Peter really stressed out then.
I was like going through all kinds of scenarios, like the bear comes back, like, well, how do I attack it? What do I do? But everything was fine, obviously, and no harm was done to us or the bear. But lesson learned.
Yeah, although maybe it's tummy ache. Bears are not supposed to eat an entire bag of
probably had some gut ache after that. But it was totally our fault. We should have have taken that handle out. But like I said, lesson learned. But kind of crazy, like, you know, you kind of take it for granted. You kind of assume you're going to be okay, but the wild is the wild, and you have to be super aware and prepared, and you can't make those kind of mistakes. But yeah, I love Mammoth. I thought it was an awesome place to camp, awesome place for the family, and just beautiful. And then from there, we just we headed back to Idlewild, and obviously we have to say, like, we're on a kind of a wilderness trip, and then we end up back home, which is kind of in the wilderness. So it was awesome to come back to Idlewild, and in this house, in this place that we love. So it was a great trip. We all loved it. Wyatt loved it. We both sort of said how amazing it was to get Wyatt, like, off the grid and away from technology. As with all parents, we fall trap of him being on the iPad too much, or him being on the phone too much, just for like entertainment and just to kind of like keep him quiet. But when we were camping and when we were in the woods and stuff, like, he'll just invent scenarios and games to play. His imagination explodes. So it was so good to do that, and so good to get out there and experience that with him, and kind of see it through his eyes. And I think it was a real lesson for us in like what we want to do in the future. And we talked about like maybe becoming the kind of parents that get a Winnebago or an Airstream.
We were very envious of all of the RVs and the trailers that we saw. We were like, oh, what about that trailer? What about that RV?
Yeah, there's some pretty badass ones out there. And of course,
but it was nice to rough it in the tent.
It was. The tent was awesome.
Yeah.
But it does make you think, like, if you want to do that a lot long term, then maybe it's worth investing in something like that.
Peter just likes to spend money on nice things.
Yeah, it's a problem. So let's move on. Let's talk about training on the road. Now, of course, when I was preparing for the trip, I always overdo this. I took weights in the back of the truck. I took I got this selectorized like dumbbell set, so multiple weights, extra dumbbells in case I needed to do some like explosive work. And we took our bows and arrows and that kind of stuff. Of course, the running shoes and all that kind of stuff. And the reality is, like, once you're on the road and training and stuff, what you're going to be able to do is minimum. But we kind of mapped out, or we kind of knew that there'll be certain places where we'd be able to find gyms. And of course, Emylee knows from me, like, if I don't get to train at all, I slowly start to go insane and I'm unpleasant to be around. So
this is true.
I think she knows that, like, it's good for everybody if we can like slot that in somewhere. So as we went up, there were times when I did get the dumbbells out, and I did an Instagram post about this. I just like do simple circuit stuff, invent like simple EMOMs where I'm just like doing a couple of different movements, and keeping myself accountable with the clock and just being very efficient with the time. Because it would be easy when you have a dumbbell in the forest just to end up doing a bunch of nonsense, and 90 minutes goes past and you've barely done anything. So I find like having a clock and doing something like very strict, like an EMOM, like an every minute on the minute kind of sequencing drill.
Especially with something explosive and something pure strength. So like something like you did a power driven movement paired with a, like more hypertrophy, just strength movement.
Yeah. And under no illusion that like you're moving the bar forward, like you're just literally kind of treading water, just not letting the body fall apart, and just kind of like keeping on top of things, in a sense.
You're not one rep maxing with
you're just
dumbbells?
It reminded me of when we were in when the pandemic was at its height, and all we had was, everyone was just using dumbbells at home, and it was like just doing whatever you can to stay sane. But it's still hugely valuable. And of course you have bodyweight stuff, some dumbbell stuff and that kind of stuff, and you can be very creative with it. So that was super beneficial. So if you are going on a road trip, I would say, like, take a dumbbell or a kettlebell or something, some kind of tool you can just kind of play around with, because it is enough to just, like I said, just stay in tune with your body and not let things totally fall apart. And of course, if you're combining that with like being outdoors and hiking and swimming and all that.
Yeah, that was the main thing with us, where like we found gyms to drop into and did some things, but the main thing is that every day we did some sort of like hike or walk around somewhere. You know, in Boise there was the Green Belt, and in Wallowa Lake there was that awesome hike up you know, you go take this incredible tram that takes you up 5,500 elevation, and then there's a 3-mile hike there.
And I'll say, like, hiking 3 miles with a 40-pound kid on your back, it's hard. Like, it's and your elevation, like it gas.
Hiking pregnant is also difficult.
Hiking pregnant is also difficult. But yeah, I remember hiking with Wyatt when he was like 15, 20 pounds, and it was way easier. Now it's like, oh my God, this is a giant lump on my back. But yeah, again, it's super fun, good conditioning. Yeah, it's a real way to invest. But yeah, like I said, we did find a number of gyms on the road, which I want to talk about a little bit, because it's always fun for us to like dip into different gyms and see what they're doing, and so kind of compare it to what we do and see what works and what doesn't work. Previously, when we've done this kind of thing before, we've always kind of dropped into CrossFit gyms in the past. But obviously with Emylee being pregnant and me being a total meathead,
and us having Wyatt, like
and us having Wyatt, like it wasn't the right kind of scenario to drop into CrossFit gyms. Though I've done that in the past and I have loved it. I'm just kind of in a different place, like mentally right now from that. So we tended to drop into kind of more traditional, like strength and conditioning / Globo type gyms. And the one we went to in the Hood River was awesome, because it did have like a CrossFit side to it, and then it had like a main gym, you know, much like we have at Pharos, with kind of like the base area with all the equipment in there, and then the kind of like functional side, obviously a much smaller kind of version than Pharos. But it was good to see people, you know, embracing that kind of business model and realizing the value of both. I've talked about that a lot on the podcast before, how, you know, you really can't get the best of both worlds if you implement it right, if you create the space efficiently and effectively. And I did some like CrossFit stuff, and then I did some like bodybuilding stuff and some basic cardio stuff.
And that gym was great because it was open 24 hours and had key card access, which was an awesome, you know, awesome to be able. Not that we took advantage of workout, but
I can't imagine. I don't know who's training between like the hours of like 12 and 5
Well, they lead a much different life than you, Peter. That is one thing.
Right. I mean, and that's another thing about training on the road, is like you have, especially with a kid, you have to be committed to it and realize like there's going to be a very finite time in which you can do that. Luckily, that gym we could actually take Wyatt. We actually took him, just set him in the corner with his toys, and
set him up in his car seat and had his toys, and he would just play, and it would be like totally fine. That is the beauty of a mom and pop kind of situation. Because we popped into another gym, and first thing we walked in, we were like, "Do you do day passes?" And they were like, "We do not have childcare." And I was like, "Okay, yep, totally, yep, understood. We will swap."
So with that in mind, like, I had to be prepared to like get up at 5, even though you're on holiday, get up at 5, go to the gym, get it done, get back, switch out Wyatt, and then Emylee can go to the gym and that kind of stuff. So it does like take commitment. You have to want to do it, and you have to like realize the value of it, even though you're on holiday. For me, if it's a holiday where I end up feeling physically like shit, then it's not good. Like, it's no good to me at all. It's already hard enough for me to be away from like the business for that amount of time without me going kind of like my anxiety kind of raising. And if you added like not training as well to that, it would not be a good place mentally or physically for me. So I wanted to get that in. I managed to get it in. I actually felt really good with what I did. I did a lot of good stuff. I had some issues. I was driving so much. I had some issues with my back and my hips.
Right at the tail end there. Right, and that's the trouble with you, Peter. You only stretch when you have to. You only stretch when you're too, when it hurts. But
so I had to slot that in at the end.
Which is so funny to me, because I'm like, training is so important to you, and you don't want to be able to not, like, you want to always be able to train. But then if you're broken, you can't train. So you'd think that it would be more a part of your routine. Like, I'd get like my two things were, we'd get out of the car. I know it is different because I'm also pregnant, so I have to stay moving. Otherwise I'll get like really weird cramps. But like a couch stretch a day keeps the back pain away when you are driving. So I would do, you know, a 2-minute couch stretch when we're in the hotel, or just pop my knee up on the picnic table if we're camping, and then an elevated pigeon kind of thing where I put my leg up on the bed and do that while, you know, we're kind of winding down. And then poor Peter makes it to about a week and a half and then breaks down.
Yeah, right at the end. But, you know, it's just one of those things. You know what I hate is when, as soon as people get something like that or niggle, they're like, I can't train that. I've hurt myself. I need to like take a complete break. I'm like, it's one of the worst things you can do to do nothing. There's always things you can do.
That was the trouble, right? It's 4,200 miles of sitting in one fixed position.
You're in one position. You need movement. You need to move around. So the last couple of days I went to the gym. I avoided hinging because hinging was the problem. But there's so much you can do in a gym. Just because you can't hinge doesn't mean you can't do a ton of other stuff.
Especially in global gym stuff.
Yeah, especially
it is harder in a functional fitness kind of style, because a lot in CrossFit is either hinging, squatting. It's like, in order to move the bar from one place to another, you gotta, you know, hinge. But it's really great when there's machines and isolated stuff. Yeah,
so I managed to do a ton of stuff, really, really good stuff. Even though I couldn't hinge, had some great workouts. And actually, I've grown to kind of fall back in love with that kind of space. It's the space that I grew up in those kind of global CrossFit, in those global gyms. And of course, the needle's moved and there's different things going on now. But when I go back into a space like that now, and I see all these machines and see all the different potential, different things. And there's a big difference between being a machine and not understanding mechanics, and being on a machine once you understand, have comprehended, and you've practiced good mechanics for a long time. Because when you go back onto a machine, now that you understand mechanics better, you use it differently. You are much more effective with the machine. You understand where the tension should be. You understand body position. It's like Smith machines. I hadn't used a Smith machine in a long time, and I kind of swung off them. Charles Poliquin, one of my kind of educators, was dead set against the Smith machine and thought it taught bad movement patterns, this, that, and the other. But I actually find if you do understand what good movement is, you understand what a squat looks like, you understand what a press should feel like, you can use that Smith machine to a great advantage. It really helps you focus on the muscle you're trying to activate. You can develop great tension, even though the range of motion isn't that kind of limited access, limited plane, just goes up and down a fixed plane. I found it to be very effective at what I was trying to do, which was activate, specific muscles at specific times. So when people badmouth machines and Smith machines, I'm like, it depends. It really depends what you're trying to do, where you are in your kind of training evolution, and what you're trying to get out of it. Like, are you going to put someone who's never done a squat before on a Smith machine? Absolutely not. It is going to teach bad mechanics. They're not going to understand what's meant to be happening. They're not going to understand where the tension is. Are you going to take someone who's been training for 20 years, understands how to squat, understands how to press, and explain to them what they should be feeling? Can that have value at that point? Then absolutely yes.
But it was funny because I was, while Peter was working out and I was watching Wyatt in like the little reception area, and there was at one of the gyms, there was a PT doing an inquiry, like a new client inquiry. And they were talking, and it was this, older woman with every pain under the sun, a ton of medications, a ton of stuff, and was saying, I used to be able to get into the machines and stuff like that and felt really good. And then now recently I haven't been able to do any of that. And it was a younger coach, and the coach was like, yeah, and it's great to start on the machines, but ultimately, we want to get you to the more functional kind of style. And it was hilarious how the woman was like, honestly, I have no interest in that. Like, I just want to get back to feeling good on machines. And it was a nice reminder and lesson that not everyone's goals need to be the same. Like some people whose bodies are completely broken down, they just need isolated movements on machines to keep the body moving and to keep muscles from atrophying and to, you know, so it was a nice kind of reminder for coaches that it's like, it's not always the end game to get them to be doing barbell thrusters and using a barbell for doing, you know, and doing the kind of functional style stuff that's like being fed down our throats now.
Well, and also like sometimes you see beginners take new clients and they're trying to make them do these like complex functional movements where you're combining a couple of different things, and it's kind of like, I saw someone doing like a single arm kettlebell, like press lunge type thing, and the woman had terrible shoulder mobility and the whole thing just looked horrible. And I'm just like, that person cannot move well, does not have the strength in those ranges yet. They would be better off just being on a shoulder press machine, developing that strength and that range of motion, and doing some basic lunges. Like why invent these like complex functional movement sequences for people under the banner of, oh, it's more like the real world? I'm like, no one's doing that in the real world. That's completely invented. So I think it's important not to get carried away with the idea of functional training and not, you know, really understand what a person needs at a specific time.
That there's a place for the machines.
There's a place for, I mean, there's a place for everything.
Like
maybe there is a place.
There's a reason why Arnold Schwarzenegger just uses the machines now. Like he's not deadlifting and squatting and doing a bunch of shit. Although he could in his heyday, he's not doing that shit anymore.
Right. And like I said, maybe there was a place for this complex press lunge combination thingy that I saw this person doing. And I think there was a use of a Bosu ball at some point doing it. I was like, what is going on?
Now do it again, but balance.
Yeah. And then it's like at the end of it's like, yeah, you did so good. You did it. I'm like, what did you do? You're like, you didn't kill yourself, but you didn't do much more than that. But yeah, when you see all these things going on in terms of it is always revealing and a good reminder that, you know, there's a time and place for everything. There is value to everything, but you have to be aware of what a person needs at what stage and at what age, and again, what the goal is. Like Emylee was saying, if it's an older person, they're just trying to like stay away from atrophy and just trying to, you know, stay functional,
happy
and
like, active, and try to do some movement that they enjoy and hang out with someone that they, you know, like working out with, and you know. Yeah,
and it's a good reminder for me, because as we build this new gym in Idlewild that we're building, you know, a lot of the community here is slightly older, and they're going to have different needs. It's not going to be a ton of studs like we have at Pharos Echo Park, who are just going and doing snatches and muscle ups. So, you know, when you build a new gym like that, you have to bear that in mind. Like, what is your clientele? What do they need, and what's going to be best for them, as opposed to like what's going to be the best for the ultimate gym champion.
Right. It's so funny that we had the arm cycle, which is a great piece of techno gym equipment. We had it at Pharos Echo Park, and it just sat there collecting dust for years. And we brought it to Idlewild, and it's like, you use it all the time. Yeah. We're using it all the time for our clients here. And it's, you know, amazing to see.
So just things to kind of note as you evolve as a coach, and as you if you are like building gyms and that kind of thing, just what do these people need, what's going to be best for them, and how should you best go about designing those programs and designing your gym space to accommodate their needs. It's something that is greatly on my mind right now. So yeah, the gyms that we went to, like I said, more on the kind of like traditional gym side. I do think, you know, gyms have improved so much since I was younger. A lot of people are doing this kind of like combination. The one in Missoula, again, was kind of a combination gym. They had like the kind of like meathead area, and then like the functional training zone type area. And a lot of people are embracing that kind of thing, which is fun to see. And then I went to one gym in where were we with that?
We were in Nevada.
It was Nevada.
It was in Winnemucca.
Winnemucca, yeah. And I went to the front desk and said, "Do you have gyms?" No, we don't have a gym in the building, but we can give you access to this gym in town. And you know, all you got to do is sign in, and we'll give you a key card. So again, I got up at 5. I went super early because you know we wanted to get on the road. So I went there, and I'm walking. I said, "Can I walk there?" To the lady, she said, "Yeah, you can walk there. It'll take you like 12 minutes, but you can walk." So I go out the back, and I'm walking through the car park, and then I'm walking, and it's getting sketchier and sketchier and sketchier. I'm like, among all these like warehouses, there's a ton of like, you know, yards with like shit everywhere and like dogs barking, and it's getting more and more kind of like chaotic. And I go into, I arrive at this space, and there's like death metal. This is like 5:30 a.m. in the morning. There's like death metal playing, like super loud. It's super aggressive. Everything's like intense, and like everyone in there's like jacked up on steroids, and it's like I was like, holy.
Much
fuck.
Different from the casino vibe we found during the day. People smoking cigarettes in the casino next to their 2-year-old.
Right. But again, so I went in and kind of did my thing, and it was a reminder of more like gyms I went to when I was a kid, just kind of like intense, rusty old, like no frills kind of spaces. And it actually had some great equipment in there, and it had like bodybuilding champions all around the walls and stuff, big pictures and stuff. But it was definitely the most aggressive space I've been in some time. And
yeah, it's been nice to see that it's kind of gotten away from that gyms are getting
right.
You know,
but it is, but again, it's what some people need. Like some people thrive in that environment. And to be fair, I didn't fuck around in there. I was like, I didn't even look at my phone. I was just like, I'm just gonna get my head down and train, because you know, you don't want to be the one to be, you know, not working. It almost demands a kind of a hardworking ethic, because you know, you don't want to be you know, messing around in there. So it definitely made me be at the time and get in and out pretty quickly. But yeah, it was a reminder of, you know, sometimes you do get used to luxury to some degree and comfort. I mean, I think Pharos Echo Park treads that good boundary between being nice and being a great comfortable space and a very welcoming space, but also has, you know, we have sessions that are very intense, and we get the best out of people and that kind of stuff. It doesn't feel super aggressive, although to some, I guess it might be, you know, people always remind me it can be still an intimidating space to walk into. As nice as you can make things, if people haven't been in gym environments for a while, it can be intimidating. And it's always a reminder to make it as welcoming as it can be. But again, the space that I went into in Nevada, it was, you know, very, very, very different to what we do, and a very, very different environment, but still great for some people and what some people need to get the job done. So yeah, it was a good lesson, a good reminder of that kind of environment. But I'm glad that Annie and my child are not there.
Yeah, but it was nice. I mean, training on the road, we're lucky that we have we do all of our programming through Train Heroic, and it's a really nice interface with a bunch of videos that you can follow along to. So I'd go in and be like, oh, what's the build workout for today? And follow along with that. So, you know, if you're traveling on the road, it is a nice to plan in advance, to know what gyms you're going to go into, and then to kind of have a plan. If you don't have a plan and you're finding yourself just kind of coming in and doing some stuff, then find yourself an online program like the Pharos online programs that we have that you can, you know, jump into. And there's like 5 different types of programs. We even have a body weight program. So if we had no equipment at all, we could jump in on the Fit 30 program and just get that done. And so, you know, it's nice to have and nice to be able to follow along to. It just takes a little intention and planning ahead.
And it was good for me that I knew I was going to meet Jeff, and I knew Jeff would want to train, and it would be early on in our trip, so I knew that would kind of set the bar. And we trained. I think we trained every day when we were in Third River.
Yeah.
And we trained. Me and Jeff did a wedding day workout, which was great. And yeah, it set the tone for the rest of the trip. Like once I'd done that, it's like, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're gonna stay on top of things. So it was good. Let's move on to nutrition, because people always say like, oh my God, I'm going away, like I'm going to eat. The most important thing is realizing, especially like the way that we did it, because we were sitting in the car for a long time, you have to understand that your daily energy expenditure is going to be less. You're not, usually me and Emily, we're on our feet all day. Like if we're training people, we're in and out of the gym or we're moving around, whatever it is, you know, you're burning a lot of calories in motion. When you're sitting in the car all day, and then you're getting out and you're, you know, maybe doing some stuff, but less than what you would do on a normal day, you have to understand you're burning less calories. So when you bear that in mind, of course, you need to consume less calories. If you consume the same amount of calories that you normally consume and do less work and expel less energy, of course, your caloric balance is going to be different. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of they you know, they eat the same as they always eat, but they do a lot less, and like they wonder why they're put on weight. So for me and for Emily, we only really had, like, I'd say one big meal a day.
And then
I
was super prepared. Light, I was very prepared with like snacks, especially with Wyatt. And so we'd have a lot of like protein snacks. That's like my biggest thing is always like choose protein first.
Right.
And so we'd have, you know, whether it's RX bars or jerky or string cheeses or like little yogurts that you can pack. You know, we had a cooler, a little pack cooler in the front with all of our kind of, you know, ready to eat, to go. We had a lot of fruit things. So we had tangerines and apples and, you know, strawberries and blueberries type stuff.
Yeah.
And then then we had a bigger cooler in the back, and that had all of our staples for camping that we'd have.
Eggs, meat, bacon. I do a lot of chili because chili is just easy.
So much chili. I think we ate chili like 3 or 4 times over the course of it. And the other good thing is because we did a lot of canned stuff. So there was, you know, we'd bring canned soups, canned kidney beans, canned chilies, canned like things that, you know, last and that bears can't get into. Now we know. And so then it was great because, you know, and we bring bread and, you know, peanut butter and jelly and that kind of thing for to go snacks kind of stuff. But it was great to always be able to have something good and nutritious accessible nearby. So that way, because when we weren't prepared, like I think we got less prepared as the trip went on, obviously. And then we're sitting in Winnemucca, Nevada, and wondering what to eat. And there was no, you know, the place that we wanted to eat wasn't open. There was a barbecue spot that wasn't open. We ended up eating at this, you know, crappy little casino. And it was great because you ask the person, everyone's idea of what is fresh and healthy is different, right? And so I go and ask the hotel concierge, like, oh, we're looking for like, you know, relatively healthy place to eat. And she's like, well, the casino down the street has a salad bar and it's super fresh and healthy. And you go in and it's like iceberg lettuce and ranch dressing and very like, you know, stuff that is definitely not fresh.
Yeah.
And so
there's no farms around there.
It definitely not.
But I still think you can still make good choices. So I'd say, like, on this whole trip, I think I ate pretty well. And what I was going to say is, again, I massively reduced, not that I eat like a lot anyway, but I massively reduced my carbohydrate content because I didn't need a lot of carbs to do what I was doing. So I mainly focused
minus that incredible burrito that we had in Boise, the best burrito we've ever had.
That lobster burrito.
It was like lobster, steak, and shrimp.
Yeah.
And it was massive, the size of definitely your head at least.
Yeah.
And you ate the whole thing, and I ate the whole thing.
But yeah, a reduction in carbs definitely, because I can easily survive on proteins and fats on a journey like that with the kind of work that I was doing. I had some carbohydrates, I had some fruit, and then, like Emily was saying, like some rice and burritos and that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, I just make my focus about proteins and fats because I know that's what's going to be best for my body. That's what's going to stop me from gaining a lot of body fat. I'm not going to take in an excess of calories because I'm going to, you know, massively reduce my carbohydrate intake. And when you're on the road and you are camping, it's easy to cook fats and proteins. You know, you're just cooking your meat. So we had steak, like I said, we had chili, and we did eggs. So it's easy to get your fats. Avocado, all that kind of stuff. Like Emma said, these fresh salad bars, you can get some greens in. So I do think a lot of the time people make the excuse of, oh, I'm on holiday, I'm just going to eat whatever I want, and then just end up feeling like absolute shit. Whereas you can make good choices on the road. Doesn't matter where you go.
That 80-20 philosophy or that 60-40, you know, wherever you end up splitting on that, then you can't, you know, like I was joking on Instagram, like then you can have your s'mores, like you can have like your that, you know, your 10-pound burrito that we ate, where it's like you don't regret those things because you know that they're few and far between, and that you know, the 80% of what you're doing is pretty on point. So you can allow yourself that 20% of like actual life's enjoyment without feeling bad about it.
Right, and the basic thing is most people that are gaining weight are it's just because they're overeating, like they're eating more than they're burning, obviously. So you have to, like I said before, you just have to take that into consideration. What do I need to fuel my day? What's going to be essential today? What do I really need to feel good? A lot of the time, it's a lot less than you think it is. And I find,
especially if you're in the car for 4 to 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I'm fucking drinking a lot of coffee, which is not great.
I thought you did pretty well on this trip, Peter.
Yeah.
Comparatively, yeah. Given that you'll do an entire pot of coffee and then brew a second pot of coffee around 2 o'clock. Yeah. This time it's like we had our jet boil, and that camping jet boil was great. And then you had maybe one flat white. I drank a lot of matcha lattes. Man, that was one thing about I had the best matcha latte in Winnemucca, which was surprising. Like literally the best matcha latte I've ever had, which was surprising.
But yeah, so when you're on the road and you're dipping into restaurants or you're cooking, just stick to simple stuff. Like for me, if I go into, like Emily said, that casino restaurant, I'm just gonna get a steak and have some salad. I don't need all the fries. I don't need the onion rings. I don't need all that shit.
I did eat potato tots.
That's okay. You're pregnant if you want to. But for me, it's like just stick to your basics. You know, you get the portion of meat, and then you get the greens, whatever it is. Or if it's in the morning, you have your eggs and you have some bacon, whatever it is. You know, just stick to your basic staples that you know have high nutritional value, and then it's going to give your body the stuff that it needs. And just stay away from all the shit. Like even when you go to garage drops, like we go to garage drops, of course, and you know, often I just get some beef jerky, or I get like a protein shake or something from a bowl. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's a lot better than getting a bag of chips and, you know, bag of sweets, whatever the fuck else people buy in garage drops. So it's just being smart enough to realize what's going to be good for you, what your body needs, and not. It's all convenient, right? Whether I buy a pack of beef jerky or a pack of chips, it's just as convenient. It's just being sensible and making the right choice. Me.
And changing your palate to some extent, because some people, you know, like it's easy for us to say because we've had many years of eating this way, but if you're just starting out, it's like hard to always make that good choice. And so that's why I say, like, just try to choose protein first. Like when you go into the garage, like go into the section, like they always have the you know, the meat and cheese kind of thing. They always have string cheeses. They always have a thing of yogurt. They always have beef jerky. And you may not be wired to think of that first, but if you just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to choose protein first, and then, you know, and then be kind to myself for the rest, you know, for whatever else, as they're developing those, you know, neural patterns that help you to eat healthy. Because it is easy for us to say, especially you know, because you can literally just survive off of meat alone, and not everyone can. But choose protein first, and then the rest will come.
That's true. That's a good way to frame it. Like just go protein first, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, because usually the problem is people go in and they're like, oh, what do I want? And then they think of what they want. And then, of course, marketing and really good, and all the packaging and everything that draws their eye. And they're like, oh, I want a bag of Cheetos. Like, we know because we see Wyatt, right? Like when he goes in, he's like, oh, I want that. I want these Cheetos. I want this. I want that. And so it's like you have to even train, like you have to start them young and train them to be like, okay, eat your protein first. And then like, yeah, you can still have the chips, and you can still have the Packies, and you can still have all of, you know, those extra kind of stuff, but let's choose protein first.
Yeah. Something you brought up earlier about the stretching thing, which made me think of
did I offend you? I'm sorry.
No, not at all. No, you are 100% correct. But a big part of this trip, obviously, because you're in the car so much, we wanted to listen to something like educational or inspiring and that kind of stuff. And we listened to David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me book, which is kind of someone else is reading it, but
they did a great job working together.
They worked together. Like, they had like breaks where they like talked about the chapter and that kind of stuff.
David Goggins was still very much a part of it.
Right.
But they had another guy named Adam, forget his last name now, but he helped, co-write the book and then read the audiobook. But it was great because in between the chapters, you got like the audiobook only podcast version of about the chapters and stuff. So it was really fun to hear his life, and God, what an obsessive, disciplined, crazy dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's inspirational in many ways because that's someone who will never back down and who will always get the job done. I mean, he did buds 3 times because the first time he got injured, the second time he got injured, and then the third time the first time he got injured and had to pull out. The second time he finished buds and then got injured, and then they said, okay, but now you have to retake buds. And then the third time had to finish buds with 2 broken legs.
He ran every day on 2 broken legs and just like made it through because he was like, I ain't doing this again.
Yeah. So that, and then all the ultra marathons that followed. Obviously, to run ultra marathons, you have to be kind of fucked up in the head. But just the relentless pursuit of excellence, the relentless pursuit of no matter what, this will not hurt me, this will not beat me.
And not being afraid of getting hurt. Like, meaning that like he literally pursued things that he knew would be uncomfortable because it would make him stronger. And there's like such a lesson to be learned, because a lot of us try to seek our comforts and always chase what is comfortable, as opposed to leaning into the things that are, painful and uncomfortable to see what we can achieve.
Right.
And to know that makes for a much more fulfilling life.
And of course, the biggest takeaway for me, and I talk about it a lot, but sometimes I listen to stuff like that and it really does remind me the importance of mindset, and just being in that mindset where you're like, I need something to test me. I need something that's going to push me. I need something that I don't know whether I can do it. It's going to take me to a different place in my mind and in my body. And we are all guilty at times of just going through workouts and going through our physical challenges that are just comfortable. That it gets to the point where it's not that hard for us. It's kind of like
you're only willing to do what's in your comfort zone.
Right. And it's not like it's not effective for your body, because it is, but it's not challenging you mentally, and it's not pushing you to a different space in your spirit. Whereas when you listen to Goggins, like everything he does has to be like, if this doesn't change me, I'm not doing it. And not that I want to be like David Goggins or I want to live that kind of life, because I think there are innate problems that come along with that.
Or sacrifices. Not necessarily problems, just it's a sacrifice.
Right. But I do think it's a good reminder that you have to do things that do challenge you and do push you to a different place mentally and physically at times. This was always my thing with the Jim Jones stuff and the CrossFit stuff. It's some of it isn't the best thing physically at times.
Right, but it's not 5 days a week.
Right, but it is the best thing mentally. Like, I need to challenge myself. I need to push myself beyond my ordinary realms. I need to find something that's going to really, really hurt me in order for me to grow. So we always try to include that stuff at Pharos. And again, it was just a reminder of the importance of it. He has become very successful because he put himself in very uncomfortable positions, in very uncomfortable places, and learned and grew from those places. So yeah, it was just the whole thing for me. It was like, yeah, that shit is really important. But one of the key points that Emily was bringing up, he gets to this point, he's been doing all this physical stuff, he's been doing all this running, and he gets to the point where he thinks he's dying. His body is just shutting down. And he's like, I think I'm literally dying. And it came down to the fact that his body was so locked up from like all this work and no stretching that
he had never stretched. Done all this stuff, 3 buds, like many tours, all these ultra marathons, but he, like, at the time, the research, was counterproductive to, like, if you want to make strength gains and be explosive, there was, all this research that said that stretching is counterintuitive to that, which was like just such a one lie, now we know better. But also, like, so he followed that, and then he literally thought he was dying, and you know, he took some time and literally just had a crazy stretch routine for months and months and months.
Like stretching for like 2 hours, 5 hours a day.
Because
like
that man does nothing to he does nothing to the bare minimum. Everything is go.
But really fixed himself. Like he went to all the best doctors, all the best scientists. No one could tell him what was wrong with him. And then he found this like stretch doctor who basically said, this is the problem. And then he basically fixed himself through stretching and then was doing everything he'd ever done before better again. So again, a lesson to A, think outside the box, because we're always, science is always learning. It's not a finite thing. Not everybody knows everything. And he really had to go outside the box to figure out what was wrong with him. And then B, I always say to myself, fuck, what's it going to take for me to fucking stretch more? Like, I know I need to do it. I have an amazing wife who has all this knowledge about stretching and mobility. We do a ton of it at Pharos Athletic Club. What's it really going to take for me to fucking do it? And for him, it took almost dying to start stretching more. So I don't think I'm gonna get to that point, but I think when I listen to stuff like that, it's just a reminder to me. It's like, fuck, dude, just fucking do it. In the evening, when you're, you know, if you're chilling out with your family and you're watching something on the TV and Netflix, just stretch as you're doing it. Just add it in. So that's when I got back, I was like, okay, this is what I need to start doing, because I'm definitely gonna have those problems, especially after, like I said, being in the car for so long and my hips and my back were like, oh, this isn't great. So yeah, it was a good lesson to learn, and a fantastic book, by the way. If you haven't listened to it or haven't read it, even if you're not into, you know, all this kind of stuff, not massively into fitness, or, you know, he's a military guy, obviously. So if you're not massively into military, it doesn't matter.
It was just more about mindset.
It's all about mindset and the lessons that we learn. So if you want a great inspirational book to listen to, then I recommend it. Other stuff, obviously, we did have Wyatt on the road. Emylee is pregnant. We did have, you know, it puts you in different places when you have a family. If I was doing this road trip on my own, you know, it would have been way less fun, but easier in the terms of, like, you only have to, like, worry about yourself and care about yourself. When you have a family, when you have kids, and you have everything else to think about, you know, you have to, like, manage time differently. So you have to think about, you know, like I said, what time is Wyatt going to wake up? Like, how long have I got to work out? What's the safest position for my family to be in? I don't really want to stay in the cheapest fucking motel in the world, because my family may be at risk in that situation. So I want to, like, find something that I would consider to be, you know, safer and
but at the same time, we also had a 2-week trip and wanted to make sure that we were economic.
Had to be on a budget and be economic. So there are all these things go into a trip. It's like that balance between, okay, what am I going to feel comfortable with financially, and what am I going to feel comfortable with in terms of my family's safety, and how am I going to manage my time so that everybody can have the best time possible and not be selfish with my time, but at the same time not be a miserable son of a bitch because I don't get to do anything that I enjoy. So I think we managed to have, like, a fairly good balance between, like, me and Emylee both doing what we needed to do to keep ourselves in a good mindset, spend enough time with Wyatt, spend enough time with each other, and just, you know, have generally a good time. But like I said, it was, you know, as a 44-year-old man, it was a very different road trip to the stuff I'd done in my past, but probably the best thing, you know, certainly the best thing I've done in a long time.
Oh yeah, definitely one that we'll remember forever, especially the stuff with Wyatt, like just watching Wyatt play and imagine and be in the dirt and go in the lake and, you know, just enjoy life and explore.
Yeah, and I kind of been talking about this a lot recently, but when you look at the world through a child's eyes or through Wyatt's eyes, and you see how amazing everything is, like, you know, how amazing it is to explore, how amazing it is to enjoy nature, how amazing it is to meet new people. It's easy to get down on life because when you watch the news and you see how terrible everything is, and it goes, oh my God, media is always, this is terrible, this is awful. It paints a very bleak picture, and it's very easy to get down on things and get negative about things. But when you get to see and enjoy the world through his eyes and the experiences through his eyes, it makes the world fresh. And you're like, fuck, America is amazing, the world is amazing. Yes, there's a ton of problems. Yes, there's a ton of issues. But generally, like when you wake up and, you know, you go out and you spend your day, you know, make the most of it, make the best of it. There are great things out there, are great people. Everybody we met, we didn't meet any bad people the whole fucking trip. Everyone apart from that woman that yelled at you for walking across her campsite.
It wasn't even in her campsite. I think she just had a chip on her shoulder from other people in her campsite.
Right. But pretty much everyone we met was like amazing and was lovely and wanted to help. And, you know, most people are good people.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And now obviously we're back in Idlewild. We walked back into like a few things we have to take care of, which we're working through. But the main good news is I got approval yesterday for the gym in Idlewild. So I'm going to be like going 100 miles an hour on that and trying to get that figured out and set up as quickly as possible. And then we have the competition against AMP coming up at the end of the month. So we haven't signed up for that. Sign up for that.
We have another retreat going on for Labor Day, which has a few spots left. So if you're listening to this very soon, then you can still probably jump in on that.
And we have the powerlifting the meet coming up.
Yeah, we got a whole 9-week course seminar that Coach Ruby and Jess are hosting in Pharos Cycle Park. So get in on that. And that'll all culminate into a really fun mock meet that we're going to host for near Halloween time. And at
the end of the next Limitless Challenge, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a ton of stuff happening.
Woo!
Yeah. The anxiety is real, but yeah, it's all good stuff.
Some call it, but you know, some call it anxiety, and some call it the butterflies of excitement.
Right.
It's all about your perspective.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you soon and take care till then. See ya.